Okay, so now we went through Pesach, and after Pesach, we immediately entered the period of Sfiras HaOmer, counting of the Omer. And ultimately that leads us into Shavuos. This coincides, particularly in this year, with Pasha Sheminy, the Pasha that we read these weeks. You know what I'm referring to, everybody? Pasha Sheminy has a unique merit for some reason. It's the only Pasha that we read 8 times. This year, we read Pasha Sheminy. By the time Shabbos comes around, we will have read Pasha Sheminy 8 times. Each Monday and Thursday, each Shabbos afternoon, Monday and Thursday, Shabbos afternoon, until we reach the Shabbos, and then we'll go to the next Pasha. So we will discuss this whole phenomenon based on the Rebbe Sichos, as we always do. And in B'Tz Hashem, we will hopefully draw something that is directly pertinent to ourselves. As I mention all the time, that is what Torah is all about. I want to elaborate on that statement for a moment. There's an interesting Gemara. The Gemara says, Chochma yesh bagoyim ta'ami, Torah yesh bagoyim al ta'ami. Which means, in translation and then explanation, Chochma, wisdom, smarts, yesh bagoyim. If somebody says to you that there is smarts among the nations, you can accept it, you can trust that this is true. Yesh bagoyim, that's definitely a possibility, and there is. Torah yesh bagoyim, if somebody comes and says there is Torah among the nations, al ta'ami. Don't believe him. Doesn't exist. What's the Torah and what's Chochmah? Torah is Chochmah. What's the big difference? To explain this, I will refer back to something that I mentioned many times in the past. The way the Rambam and the Gemara describes Avraham Avinu's journey. Anybody who doesn't understand something that I say, please stop me. Avraham Avinu, as we discussed many times, you all know that Avraham Avinu started his life amongst Oivdei Avodah Zarah, which is the lowest level a person can be. To be subservient to stone and wood, you cannot reach a lower level. And this is when Avraham Avinu started his life, and all their wisdom, they were not stupid people, was vested in that whole lifestyle. Avraham Avinu's father was a great leader in his community. He manufactured idols. He manufactured Avodah Zarah. He was the big maven. You know what that means? An Avodah Zarah. And this is where Avraham Avinu started his life. When he was 3 years old, the Gemara says, he utterly rejected this whole reality, this whole phenomenon. This is nothing. It doesn't make any sense. And then he started roaming, he started thinking, and focusing in on what he's observing. And he started trying to understand what's going on. Now, again, I'll deviate slightly and explain something very important. Even though what we see in the world is just worldliness, but through that worldliness, the real element of the life of the world shines through, as illustrated, as manifest by the human being himself. Human being is also a worldly creature. His body consists of bone and flesh and the nerves and everything else. It's a complete structure. And yet, you cannot mistake the life that's in him. And if you employ your wisdom, you see right away that the life, this is what human being is, not his nose and his eyes. His eyes and his nose are only manifesting what really is happening. The same is true regarding the world. You have to have wisdom, you have to open your mind, open your eyes and open your heart, and then you will see it. Avraham Avinu was convinced in his wisdom that it's impossible, that you cannot see the reality through this camouflage. Camouflage? Through this concealment. Huh? Right. You can identify it. And you could not kind of put it down. Going around, An interesting thing. What was Avraham Avinu's central question? He was a very intelligent. An intelligent man, and he has a question. What, you smile?
No, I just like the story. Forgive me. I get into the stuff.
Okay. An intelligent man, when he is in dilemma, the first thing he does is identify precisely what is my question. If I don't have a precise question, I cannot find an answer. Only a vague idea. And what was the question that Avraham Avinu identified that was troubling him? That would be the key to his discovery. The question was, in the words of the Rambam and the Gemara, Veish balabayis lebirazu. Is there a balabayis? Is there an owner, a manager to this great edifice? This great edifice is like a huge machine that seems to be working on its own impetus, its own routine. Sun rises, sun sets, the earth, everything. Is the balabayis or has Hashem or there isn't? Avraham Avinu, he said, and no matter how complex and how fully well structured and healthy this bira, there has to be a balabayis. It cannot operate on its own. Such a routine, such perfection, there's no way it operates on its own. This was Avraham Avinu's question. And I want to explain the difference, how Avraham Avinu asked the question, and how somebody in the world would ask the question. Somebody in the world would ask the question, where does this thing come from? How did the world come about? You understand the difference? When you ask the question, how did the world come about? It's impersonal. You're not involved in it. You're just observing. Nothing to do with me. All I'm interested in is in my lunch, my supper, my bed, my friend. I'm not interested in this beer. It's a nice philosophical question. I'd like to know. Yesh Bal Habayis Levidos is a totally different question. What am I here for? Who is the Bal Habayis that I'm supposed to serve? Am I here for naught? Am I here to eat my steak? I mean, what's going on? This was a Roman's question. And this is why I always point out that Avraham Avinu, after he came to the conclusion, this profound conclusion, that the world does have a Bal Habayis, and that it is the Bal Habayis that keeps the world running, and keep all the rotations of the planets rotating and everything, the whole yearly cycle and the continued, multi-year cycle. It is his koyach and his will that keeps us going. Avraham Avinu's reaction from that discovery was, therefore, he is the one that we have to serve. He did not simply write a philosophical book and say, hey, gentlemen, I got something interesting to tell. That wasn't his objective at all. He wasn't a professor. He was a Jew. His question, which was to start with a valid question, a human question, a Jewish question, and he came to an answer that really was appropriate. And this is the difference. Chochma yesh b'goyim, Torah yesh b'goyim. Philosophically, they can be very smart. They can ask all kinds of philosophical questions. One of the great philosophers that are quoted even in Sifrei HaKodesh, in our Sforim, Aristotle and Socrates and all these guys are also quoted. But they're philosophers. This is not Torah, this is Chochmah. By Yidden, this is Torah. Torah yesh b'goyim. This is just a side point, because we mention all the time when we talk that ultimately the most important aspect of all learning and all our talking is what does it mean to me? What does this teach me? How does this give me guidance in life? That's a very important distinction. Are you learning Torah or are you learning Chochmah? If you're learning Chochmah, then this is Rachmana Litzlan Chochmas HaGoyim. If you're learning Torah, then this is a Jewish learning. A Jew senses, identifies himself automatically with the entire reality. Whatever the reality is, he is part of it. And therefore his question is, where do I fit? What am I supposed to do? Not how do I make my mark, how do I make myself known, how do I get some covet, how do I get some money? That's not a Jewish question. Now back to the center theme. So we have Pasha Sheminy, and Tfilas Oimer together, and there is a very great similarity between the two. Sheminy means the eighth. What is the eighth referred to? This is the eighth day of Miluyim, of the inauguration of the Mizbeach and the Mishkan. There were 7 days of inauguration. And the eighth day, this is the concluding, this is the I've arrived, so to speak, moment. Similar thing, we have Tfilas Oimer. We count Tfilas Oimer. Interesting thing. We count Tfilas Oimer. How many days do we count? Anybody? 49 days. You look in the Torah, what does it say? You count 50. But you don't count 50. You count 49. Just like the 7 days in Miluyim ultimately led into the 8th day, and the Torah refers to it as the 8th day, even though they're two separate, completely separate periods. Because the 8th day was accomplished and built on the basis of the 7 days. The same thing, the 50th day, which is Shavuos, Matan Torah. We don't count the 50th day, because that we count only the preparation days, that which is up to us. Matan Torah is not something that we did or that we did, something that came to us from above. But it came to us from above only as a result of us counting the 49 days. And the Torah says you count in 50 days. We didn't count 50 days, but the effect of the 49 days is the 50th day. So it's our effect, even though this came to us from above. To elaborate further and more deeply into this concept, or this phenomenon, what are the 49 days and the 50th day? The 7 days and the 8th day. Let's first take 7 days and the 8th day, which is Pasha Sheminy. We always focus on the Pasha of the week. We all know that 7 days represent the yearly cycle. The worldly cycle consists of 7. When Rebbe created the world, he created the world in 7 days. Even though he created the world in 6 days, the 7th day is part of the creation cycle, because that complemented and made the world a real place, a real thing. Because if there is a world, everything is happening, but there is no Shabbos to it, there is no conclusion, it's not a real thing. So the Shabbos, this is the complement of the, so to speak, of the world. So the worldly cycle is 7. This is how we have 7 days in the week. This is how we have 7 years in a Shemitah. Familiar with that? In the sabbatical year, that's Shemitah. Then there is Yovel. Yovel is the 50th year of a 50-year cycle, where we count 7 Shemitahs. Then we have the 50th year, which changes in the whole structure of everything that developed over the 50 years goes back and start afresh. And so forth. This is all part, so to speak, of the worldly cycle. Again, the reason there is a cycle in the world, even though to our physical eye, Sunday and Monday and Tuesday are all identical, and even Harvard Shabbos is all identical, but it's not. Why is it not? Because Yesh Bar Habayis Lebirazu. There is life in the world. Yesh balabais, I mentioned before. Balabais means an owner, a manager. Lebirozu, to this edifice. Birozu. Biro means an edifice. So that ultimately, all the effort that we expend in our daily routine, this is not merely an effort, although the effort is very important, but the result of the effort is like in the category of a reward, because it's greater than what the effort itself can produce. Take an example. You go out and you plow the field, and you sweat of your brow, work hard. You plow the field, and then you go and you seed it, and then you watch it, and you water it, and all that. And then, 2 weeks later, you have a field full of wheat stalks. Is that what you produced? Did you produce wheat stalks? That can give you sustenance for years and all the people around you? The accomplishment of our effort is incomparably greater to the effort itself. For those of us who have any kind of exposure, I'll give you an example. Even on the smaller scale, you buy a kit to put together a child's swing, or any kit things that you buy in a kit, and you take it apart and you have hundreds of little pieces, and at first you get overwhelmed. How am I ever going to put it together? And what is it going to look like? How is it ever going to work? And then you start tediously putting things together, and you study each piece and put them outside, and you look at the schematics and all that. And then you screw this in, and you don't believe in your work until the last moment. Then all of a sudden you set it up. Hey, it really works. Take a look at that. It's amazing. That's the real thing that comes up. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts in our lives. On the physical level, on the worldly level, you know the rule is the whole. The whole is the sum of its parts. But that's not the reality. The reality is that the whole is infinitely, incomparably greater than the sum of its parts. Is a human being the sum of its parts?
No.
More?
Yeah.
A different category. The sum of his parts are not eternal. The human being is eternal.
Human beings eternal?
Yeah, his nefesh, his neshama is eternal. Every act of his has an eternal quality. And this is what the Torah is telling us over here. There are 7 days. 7 days, this is properly the the worldly cycle. But after you do through these 7 days, even Shabbos included. Even though it's Shabbos, which is, so to speak, the standalone day, Shabbos is included in that cycle because that's how you build the world, with the Shabbos. Then you reach the 8th day, which is the whole, which encompasses the entire cycle of 7, and is much, much greater, incomparably greater. And this is what happened in this Pasha. I'm sure you learned the Pasha. You're doing it now for the 3rd time, so I'm sure you learned the Pasha. 7 days they did the Avodah in the Mishkan on a daily basis. And who did it? Of all people, who did it? No. Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Moshe Rabbeinu himself did the Avodah in the Mishkan. He's doing it, he puts in his bayach, and nothing happens. He's doing it and doing it and doing it. And everybody's standing there anxiously, one day, another day. And every day he takes the Mishkan apart, puts it back together, start all over again. Then we reach the 8th day. And the 8th day, a totally new phenomenon occurs. To the point where Eden was shocked. A fire comes down from heaven and consumes the korbanos. They never saw anything like this. For 7 days they're watching it. This is not the 7th day. This is the 8th day. This is where the real thing happens. Where it comes from above. If you close your eyes, you're going to miss the fire coming down.
First, Moshe, I kept him up many nights snoring.
Who was the snorer? You?
I wasn't afraid. Still catching up.
So, this is the 8th day. Again, what is the message here? That you do the 7 days, you do things on the worldly level that is, so to speak, within reach from your perspective, what you can do. But what is the ultimate accomplishment? What does it lead to something that you cannot possibly do on your own? Something that comes from above. The real thing, the eternity itself, the godly eternity itself. The same thing, the similar thing is in Sfiras HaOmer. Even we came out of Mitzrayim. We came out of Mitzrayim. You know the state of the Jewish people upon leaving Mitzrayim. A downtrodden, skeletal people. Right? Came out from there. Walking through the desert. They're counting the days. This counting alone, this was all they could do. This is the extent of their sense of freedom, the sense of intelligence. Count the days till we reach Hasina. This counting brought about the 50th day. Even after the 50th day, even after Matan Torah, they had the Torah already, and they have seen the godly reality, godly phenomenon. They was not out of their quagmire yet. They mix up in the quicksand. They were not out yet. Because within a relatively short time after that great experience, what happened? The Egel came up. They fell right down to them. They were not out of it yet. Because they did avoid it, they counted 50 days, but it didn't really permeate the whole Metzias. They meant it, but they didn't permeate their whole effort. Since then, afterwards, thousands of years. Unfortunately, with much effort, much more destruction, and much more suffering. But we are still carrying the banner. We're still counting. We're still doing our own thing. But this little thing has enormous power, has enormous significance. What is, in fact, the point of this counting? What is the point of the 7 days that preceded the 8th day? And what is the point of all the effort that we are expending now throughout the years of Golus? And we are saying, as a result of that effort, there's going to be the Giyul, which is going to be a complete transformation of the entire creation. What does one have to do with the Yod? The explanation for that is all of these preparatory steps that bring about the culmination and the great revelation. The preparatory steps, they do not create the result. The result comes from above. Shabbos is a new creation that came from above. The 8th day was a new creation that came from above. Shavuos, Matan Torah, is something that came from above. And so too the Geula that will come about, soon in Mitzvah, is also coming from above. What is the effect of our effort? The effect of our effort is that as a result of this effort, as a result of this labor that we are expanding, focusing on trying, so to speak, to reach up, to appreciate and to recognize something higher, that ultimately cleanses us. It purifies our own coarseness, so that when Shabbos comes about, when the 8th day comes about, when the 50th day comes about, and when the Geula comes about, we are ready receptacles for it. And this is the difference. This is what the Hachana is. The count the 50 days, count the 50 days, it's only counting, but the counting is an anxious counting. I'm counting until I reach this, that whole effort is an effort to prepare myself so that I will be less engaged in the world, less engaged in the coarseness of the world, and I will be able to relate to the reality, to the God reality, more readily. I'll be able to accept it. And this is how this comes about. And this is, therefore, the entire cycle of our Avodah, leading to ultimately to the Geula Shlema. Which is a process of preparation. What is preparation? Of weeding out, uprooting, taking out any inherent rooted worldly rooting that we have. Everybody thinks the world is real. The world is not real. Much like the human body is real. It's not real. It's not alive. It's living because there's an neshama in it. Eventually, we become disengaged from the worldly reality. Not that we disengage and we just go flying out like a kite. We are disengaged because we are acting on different principles, on godly principles. In the world today, anyway, the world today has also gone through many cycles, from being the brute, that it was, to a much more human and humane world. But the emphasis is, let's make the world a better place to live. We're interested in the world. Let's make the world a better place to live. The Jewish people, the Jewish quest is, let's make the world a receptacle for the godly presence. This is the difference. Chochma yesh b'goyim, Torah yesh b'goyim. It's wise and kind when you go out and help somebody. It's a very nice deed. I don't want to elaborate too much on this, and there's much to speak about it. But this is something which stays within the, so to speak, the worldly context. Our aim, to the extent we can possibly reach it, and we reach it eventually, is to do a godly mitzvah, which reveals in the world, which takes this whole thing out of worldly context. And makes a statement. There's a godly presence here. Yesh balabayis lebilazu, there's a balabayis. There's reality here. There is what's called a difference between day and night, between doing a mitzvah and doing a kind deed.
What?
A kind deed.
When the Goyim do the mitzvahs they don't draw down Hashem also?
No. Depends. The Rambam says if they do 7 mitzvahs, 7 mitzvahs, if they do them by recognizing that this is a mitzvah that Hashem gave to Moshe, for them, then they also have Olam Haba. They don't have the same effect on the Eid, but nevertheless they have Olam Haba. But the primary duty of this element, of this aspect, is on the Yid. And this is how all this effort results in something which is totally out of this world, so to speak. It's not out of this world. It is preparing the world to be greater than itself. Or better still, preparing the world to reveal what its reality is. Coming back to ourselves here, each one of us has a special duty during this short opportunity that we have in the yeshiva. No matter how long it is, it's a short opportunity, believe me. Even somebody who had learned in yeshiva from age 5, when he gets out of this, oh man, what happened? Where is all the time go? It's always too short. Especially where most of us didn't start at age 5. If they start at age 25, they're lucky. So we have to understand what this opportunity is and how this is instrumental in setting us up for life. You may be struggling with Ivra, learning how to read, struggling with translations of the most fundamental level, struggling with pronouncing the words, struggling with understanding a simple posuk in Chumash, struggling with understanding a simple Rashi. Each one of these struggles disengages you from the quagmire, from the coarseness of the world, and makes it possible for you to then receive and then relate to a greater reality. Because let me say this, with God's help, when you go out and you start building your own life, without a sense of the greater reality, it's a torture. It's impossible. The challenges, the daily challenges of life, whether it is internal or external, dealing with your internal, with all the responsibilities at home and the various nuances, or external, dealing with your bosses, dealing with all of the things. It's just not, without a sense of purpose and reality, it's impossible. This effort here prepares us for this. Sets us on a path. We're not going to say, I have to take a break. Out, finish, I forget about this. I'm running away. I'm running from home. I'll come back when I come back to myself. My dear friend, this is the end of it. C'est la pava. Anybody knows French? That doesn't go.
What was the word?
That doesn't go. Not only doesn't go, it doesn't even enter our mind. It's like saying, I'm going to take a vacation from my neshama. What prepares us for this? What prepares us for this is that this effort of learning, with a lot of struggle, where after a week's struggle, and I finally understand this Rashi, wow, look at this. Look what light. Do you know that the 5-year-old kid understood it? on the first try? Makes a difference. He wasn't involved like I wasn't in all the deviations and all the impurities of the world. Makes no difference. We don't compare ourselves to anybody. We have to establish our own life. And we have to find our own source of light. This is the explanation for all the effort that you are put through. You have to be up 7 o'clock. Why 7 o'clock? I'll do everything you want me to do. I'm ready for the test. I'll be ready for the test 10 o'clock. No, you have to be up at 7 o'clock. Why? Because the sun rises on time and the sun sets on time. There's a godly circle, a godly schedule to the world, to life. And you have to recognize that your life is also scheduled. By your scheduling your life, you can relate to the godly schedule. And then you can relate to the balabais. That there is a balabais. If you're a hefker, you do everything that you want whenever you want it, it will be good things. But you're not part of the godly cycle. You're living outside of this beat, of this structure. And then it is very difficult to relate to the reality. So again, to conclude, we're starting a new Seder. After Pesach begins a new semester, quote unquote. It's called in yeshiva terms, it's called Zman. Period. In yeshiva terms, there are 2 periods. The winter period from Sukkot, after Sukkot till Pesach, and from after Pesach till Rosh Hashanah. So we are now in the new Zman. And we have to, with God's help, start this Zman and carry it through with new resolve, with total dedication, with aim to accomplish and to do everything we need to do in the most perfect possible way. Not as if our life depends on it, but because our life depends on it. It's much more real than we allow for it. And then, for sure, just like Shabbos comes after 6 days, just like after 7 days came Sheminy, the 8th day, just like after the 50 days came the 50th day, the same thing will come your 50th day. And your ultimate accomplishment. Every individual person has his own 50th day. And his own Geulah, as a matter of fact. A miniature Geulah. So I can only kind of utter my best wishes for you, for your success. And with whatever resources we have, you are free to take advantage of it anytime anybody needs to discuss something and so forth. I hope you take it seriously. I hope that you're successful. And then you will crave, after you leave DC, you crave for the struggling days.
I'm sorry, these are struggling days?
Yeah.
Awesome.
If you do it, if you struggle. If you don't struggle, it's not struggling.
Yeah. You enjoy it.
You can enjoy it, but you have to struggle also. You have to work hard. You have to give yourself, you're adults, you know, you're not little kids. You have to give yourself a little test on a daily basis. What did I cover today? What did I accomplish today? How do I account for this day? What did I do? What did I not do? What do I have to do better tomorrow? Yes, these are struggling days. These struggling days, as I said, is what we crave for after we leave the yeshiva. We had a student here, I don't know if you remember him. We had a student here, David Paganay. You probably remember most of them. Okay? So he came here from the opera stage. He was a solo in opera.
Sorry, what?
He was an opera singer.
Wow. Opera. Wow.
He came here from the opera. And he sat down to work. He worked very hard. Very hard. And he came out, you know, within a short time. No, he came doing nothing. I don't know if he knew Hebrew. He was my student. He was a Machaya. He really dug through. Then Baruch Hashem, he's married, and we talk quite often. He comes to my classes in the city. We talk quite often, and at some point in time, I pointed out to him something. He says, I want to get back to the hard work. And he got back to the hard work. We have a class at 6:30 in the morning. It's already invited. That's where you cleanse your mind and your heart and all your intestines. Much hatzlacha. You should have a good year. It's
a great time back.
All right. It's definitely pleasing to me to be with all of you. I want to see you struggle.
I'm enjoying it so much. I wasn't paying attention to the struggle part.
Okay.
Especially to try and keep up fast enough.
Okay, very good.
It's more of a pleasure.
I understand.